Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We're going to get into a conversation about how getting published can change the game. And we have a very special guest, Catherine Pilfrey, who's going to talk to us today about how she changed the game in her own world by publishing the I Ching Oracle Cards.
Yeah,
Catherine, would you
I
like to
Ching.
introduce yourself and who you are and maybe how this journey got started for you?
Yeah, and thanks so much for having me. So I'm a graphic designer. Although I sort of have multiple sort of career backgrounds, also in nutrition and health coaching, and I teach meditation, and I study the I Ching. Um, It started studying the I Ching when I was in college, and have continued it sort of as a regular practice in my life for all this time, and also at the same time with the meditation practice. And I found that they really go hand in hand. Um, let's see. Yeah, so I teach meditation as part of the Mindful of Aware meditation community online. That's twice a week. And yeah, the I Ching has always been just sort of a personal passion of mine. But a few years ago during the pandemic, I got the idea to create cards because typically you would consult a book, and they're thick, sort of dense books. And uh, the card deck came into my mind because I had a friend who's an acupuncturist, and she uses lots of different oracle and tarot cards and in her healing practice. And then I started thinking, oh, I wonder if there are I Ching cards. But when I started looking, there really weren't very many at all. This is 2 years ago. And so then I started thinking, well, wonder if I could create my own. And so that was sort of the start of it.
That's beautiful. And how like synchronous that you got to do it at a time where, people could probably really use these practices in their lives.
Right, right. And that was definitely a big part of the motivation, because I kept thinking the I Ching is helping me so much during this crazy time. And because the I Ching translates as Book of Changes, and it's about how to manage change in your life, how to navigate change. So it's like it was the perfect tool sort of through the pandemic, and um, obviously for any time in our life. But it definitely, it was like it was calling me um, to do this project.
It's funny that you say that it was calling you because that's something that I hear a lot of deck designers say. Like that
Mm,
it calls to them and that it literally will not stop until you're done. Was
yeah,
that the case for you?
yeah, definitely. It was suddenly like, I'm doing this, and it was super exciting. And actually, how it sort of became more sort of possible in my mind was I, by chance, saw on the Behance website, which is a website for sort of artists and illustrators and designers. I saw Sun Ambi, or Ambi Sun's work, her tarot card deck that she had posted all the cards on there, and a link to a Kickstarter that she was doing. And so I clicked on this Kickstarter link, and there was like this whole world of Kickstarter, tarot and oracle card decks. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I reached out to her to tell her how much I loved her cards and how did she do this, because I was like, I had no idea how you get a sample deck, and she had beautiful photography and videos. And so she ended up giving me some great references. And then that was kind of the start. I was like, oh, I can do this.
That's beautiful that you took
Yeah.
advantage of like the community. Right? You went out, you found someone who inspired you and you actually started a conversation with them.
Yes, which is not in my nature generally. More, I would be more hesitant. Yeah. And I didn't know about your community then either. So I found that much later.
Excellent, excellent. And we're so happy to have you. This is great that we get to have this conversation and really hear about the evolution.
Yeah.
And by the way, to everyone who's here and watching, welcome. This is totally an interactive conversation. Catherine, you've got a congratulations from the
Thank
chat
you.
there. If anyone else wants to offer, some words, some words of encouragement, questions, you can totally type them in the chat, and we'll talk about them here live. And so Catherine, you reached out to this person who is inspiring you. You found out, you opened up this Pandora's box of Kickstarter, and like I could go on Kickstarter for days and get
Right.
lost. How did you go from discovering Kickstarter to deciding that you were going to pursue publishing with a publisher?
Well, I really just intended to do a Kickstarter campaign. That was my goal initially. But then I did have in my mind that I would, once I did a successful Kickstarter, then I would reach out to publishers, because that's what Sun had done, and also Grace Duong from Mystic Mondays, who was also an inspiration. And so that was my plan. Um, but the whole process of sort of doing the social media and building a following was also much more difficult than I was expecting. And I started um, working on Instagram right when they were transitioning to videos and reels. And I started doing just photos and images at first. And so the whole thing was just sort of feeling like a big struggle. And then amazingly, I I am friends with Sam Burkholz, who is the owner, publisher, or retired publisher of Shambhala Publications. And I used to know several friends that worked for the company when they were located in Boston, where I live. And he started seeing my posts on Facebook and reached out and said, um, "Hey, if you want to get these published, here's the contact to reach out to." And I was so kind of taken aback. I was like, "Oh wow, this is amazing." It's just kind of fallen in my lap, and so I did. I reached out to their executive editor, and I sent her the samples of the cards that I had, the PDFs of everything. And yeah, she pretty quickly wrote back and said, "Yeah, we'd love to work with you," which was like, whoa. Yeah, when did this happen? Yeah, so it was sort of backwards from how I imagined it was going to happen. Um, yeah, and very fortunate,
And even though
definitely.
it fell in your lap, right, it still required action on your part.
Yes, yeah,
Love to
yeah.
hear about how you were feeling when that happened. And there is a question for you, if you'd like to incorporate this into your answer. Christian Benjamin, hello, thank you for
Hey,
being
Christian.
here. Christian says, "How long was the design aspect of your cards?"
Um, I want to say it actually. I was unemployed because it was early, or relatively early on in the pandemic, and I had been laid off. So I feel like it was around 4 months or so to do all the cards. And so one of the things with my cards is because at first I thought, when I saw sort of most of the decks out there, they use illustrations, and I'm not an illustrator. And so that was one sort of stumbling block, was how do I do cards when I'm not an illustrator? And so what occurred to me was I could use my patterns, because I design patterns. And so I realized, and I had had a company some years ago designing stationery journals and notebooks. And so I had a bunch of pattern designs from then that I realized I could incorporate into the cards. So I already had a start with some of the patterns, but then I just sort of dove into, several months of designing patterns and figuring out the colors and um, how I would get it produced and all that. But I feel like it was about 3 or 4 months of actually designing the cards. Doing the copy and the copy for the guidebook took quite a bit longer to sort of figure out and edit and um, do all that. But all told, it was probably like um, 7, 8 months. Yeah.
How long from when you completed the design, and thank you so much for sharing that part of the process with us. How much time was it from the completion of the design until you were like, okay, it's published?
Published? You mean like with the publisher? Yeah. So that took another 8 months probably. So I was sort of figuring out Facebook and Instagram and then TikTok and doing posts on those. And so it was probably 6 or 7 months later that I got the reach out from Shambhala Publications. And but then the contract negotiation took a long time. It took a long time. I originally spoke with them in March. I don't think I don't think I had a first draft of the contract until May, and then it wasn't signed until September. So that was like almost 6 months of back and forth around the contract. Yeah, so yeah, the whole process is so much more involved than you might imagine. Plus, I had done all this work on setting up a Kickstarter site, learning, doing all these workshops on how to do a successful Kickstarter. And I had done so much for that first, and then it was sort of shifting gears.
So you did
Yeah.
complete a Kickstarter before you started interacting with Shambhala?
I didn't complete it. I had it all ready to go.
Huh.
Yeah. And then I was sort of in this quandary of, oh, do I do the Kickstarter and then see if they still want to publish me? And um, in the end, I decided just to go ahead with getting it published. I think, like in retrospect, financially, it probably would have been better for me to do the Kickstarter first and then get it published. But just for where I was at in my life and it seemed like, oh, just get them published. And because Kickstarter is also an enormous amount of work and very stressful. You've done them, right? Yeah. So that wasn't feeling so appealing either. So
Got it.
yeah.
So we can conclude that either way you go, it still requires a bit of engagement and some work, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to make sure, because there is this myth out there that, oh my gosh, I'm going to find a publisher, or a publisher will find me, and then boom, I'm done.
Right. Yeah. And then there's also a whole lot of time, right? So this was September 2022. The contract was signed, but then they don't have it in their scheduled catalog until this coming fall. In fact, it's just been released for pre-order purchase, right, to happen in December this year. But so it's it's like an hour or a year and a half um, from the time that they agree to it to the time it actually gets published.
Thank you for shedding light on that. That's like
Yeah,
that's so important. There's a period, in there where things happen.
yeah, yeah. And that especially sort of being a creative person, like there's so much momentum. You want to get it out, right? You want to see it in your hands and have it be available, and then this huge long wait that is yeah, a little bit torturous. Yeah,
Got it. Got it.
yeah,
And just want to honor the time, the energy, the effort that you put into this. How does it feel for you now, like in retrospect, looking at all of the things that you've done, from the design of the patterns, the design of the cards, studying I Ching and incorporating it into your own rituals yourself, and now like really understanding that in a few months time, these are going to be distributed to the world. What is that like?
yeah, yeah. It's really exciting, but there's something. I guess one of the things that's sort of driven me the most, though, is um, because what I was saying, it was sort of like a calling to do this. Is am I doing this properly, and am I also putting enough effort into it? Like for the I Ching, not for myself so much. So that's something that I still, even though I've accomplished so much and it's so great that they're going to be published, I still feel like, oh, how do I need to sort of honor these properly and do the best for them that I can, I guess. That's sort of another piece that's in there.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Are you still, even though you're published now, are you still going to work on building your community and your social platforms and things like that? What does it look like for you at this stage of the game?
Yes, I am, but I have been doing that more slowly than I had hoped because I do have a full time job. So, sort of managing all of it is a lot. But yes, I'm building a mailing list. Doing Facebook ads and then social media too. So, yeah,
Awesome. I think it looks like you have the cards with you. Would you like to show us a few of them and maybe
yeah,
some notes on your process?
yeah. So let's see. Pulled the main ones out. So there are 64 cards in the I Ching, and um, the 64 hexagrams. So that's this. It's almost like a pictogram on the back here with these 6 lines that represent the yin and yang energy. So a straight line is yang, and a broken line is yin. And so the I Ching is made up of 64 of these hexagrams that are basically encompass all of life's experiences. And so then I did, the cards and the patterns for each. So the pattern, this card is the family. And so the pattern, is sort of indicative of like people coming together sort of in the circle. So each pattern I designed was to really sort of represent the essence of the hexagram and the card. And then the color also, I was using sort of some color theory on um, on how that hexagram manifests from the color point of view as well. But so then there's like decrease, and you can see this pattern is sort of going down. Another thing I did on the cards was I put sort of the pith instructions right on the card because I really like that idea that you just pull a card and then the instructions are right there. And so you can put it, on your desk or your dresser in your bedroom, wherever, but so that it's accessible throughout the day and that you're not having to look back at a book or know it, like with tarot, a lot of people spend a lot of time really sort of having a deep understanding of every card. But I wanted it to just be really easy for anybody to use. You don't have to be an expert, in the I Ching. But this was a fun one. So this one is called Shock. So it was sort of like little explosions and things. And this one was the Abyss. So you can see they're just sort of, I think once you don't look at the pattern and go, oh, the abyss. But then when you see the abyss, it's like, oh yeah, it just sort of connects in a somewhat more intuitive way, I think. Yeah, and here's joy, sort of exuberant with the swirls. Yeah. And so the other thing I did was, these are not in order right now, but it's a whole rainbow of colors. And so every card is a different color and they go through the whole spectrum of the rainbow too. So even just figuring out that was challenging from a printing process point of view.
They're beautiful. The way that you've done the graphic design to show the rainbow effect is gorgeous.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Yeah. I love color, so that was like, I knew right from the start they were going to be colorful and bright. Yeah.
Yeah, they're so cool. From what you've showed us, can you tell us about what you would like the user's experience to be when they pull out your deck and they're using the cards and they're incorporating it into their daily rituals? Like, what do you want them to get out of the experience of this deck?
Yeah, well, when I designed the box, and this has the old name on it, but it's the I Ching Oracle now. My thought was I wanted it to be very elegant and sort of uplifted, so that that it really would sort of be a daily ritual that's more sort of elevated. And because one of the things with the I Ching is it's really sort of giving us guidance on how to be our best self in whatever situation arises in our life. And so I wanted that sort of quality and elegance and wisdom to be represented in the cards and the deck, so that the wisdom you're getting from the cards is sort of represented in all the aspects of the box and the booklet, and so it's just an easier way to connect with our innate wisdom and the wisdom of the universe. Yeah, but then also that they're very ordinary at the same time, so that it's easy to use if you want to just pull a daily card, or if you have a question, an issue that's arisen in your life, that you can easily just pull a card. Because that was one of the issues with these books, is it was this ancient process, because the I Ching is 3,000 years old. And so the way you used to consult it was you would use coins. And so you would use Chinese coins or any kind of coin, and each coin is assigned a number. And so you throw the coins down, and the numbers would then correspond to whether it was a broken line or a straight line. And so it was this whole process to try and even calculate the hexagram. And then you would have to go to the book and read whatever 6-8 pages from the book. And so that was so complicated for a lot of people, right? But so I wanted it to be so easy that you just pull a card, and it's right there. Oh yeah, I don't know that much about runes, but yeah, someone else had mentioned that.
Yeah, agreed. It does. It's so interesting, all of the parallels amongst the different traditions, that there are, and then at the same time, just how unique the unique wisdom that they pull from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Yeah.
In retrospect, if you could envision this, how different do you think your journey would have been if you decided to self-publish?
Um, I think I would already have cards right now, for one thing. Well, I mean, that's one of the sort of hardest parts about this long delay is like, especially the sort of social media presence and friends. They were all like, "When are they coming out? When are they coming out?" You know, and um, yeah, so that part. Um, I think I think now it's like there's so much momentum with Kickstarter and cards that it's relatively easy to do, relatively well, whatever your goals are, with a Kickstarter to get them published. But it's a lot of work, especially for that month that you're running the Kickstarter campaign, just all the logistics of getting them printed and shipped and all of that. It's enormous. So um, that would have been very challenging, no doubt. Um, I heard some people describe it as like the most stressful month of their whole life, and I don't know. How did you find that?
I would have agreed if I had like a full-time job,
Mm,
like you do. That would have been a whole lot to manage for sure.
yeah,
And it does require constant engagement. You want to keep your audience updated. There will be questions. There will be things that you didn't know. And
right,
that's just the
right,
nature of the game,
yeah,
right? So
yeah,
it depends on how we prepare ourselves internally. If we're going into something like a self-publishing venture or Kickstarter campaign, and we're hoping that it's going to be easy peasy, 1, 2, 3, then there may be something called disappointment, and that's what happens
hmm,
when we have expectations. But there are alternatives, and we get to choose, like you did.
yeah, yeah. But it is really exciting what's happened with Kickstarter with some of the campaigns, right? With the what was the literary tarot last year? I'm not going to remember all the numbers. Was that the one that yeah, that one did like 750,000, and then that other I'm sort of out of touch with Kickstarter right but now, but there was another one that happened that went over $1 million.
Yeah, Ally
Yeah.
Manzaro.
Right, right.
And
Yeah.
they're doing more. They're at it
Are
again.
they really?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was brilliant. That was brilliant having all the different artists because you're pulling all of their following with it. It's like, yeah, brilliant marketing plan. And the same with the literary tarot, same idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful how we can work together as a community and
Hmm.
really have something impact people's lives. Like
Hmm.
the Kickstarter game for tarot is forever changed, forever
Yeah.
altered now that
Yeah.
these people have made their mark. And the
Yeah.
same with you, Catherine. You've made an indelible mark on the industry by moving forward with publishing. And
Hmm.
I want to thank you and congratulate you again for all of the work that you've done internally and how you've shared that with us externally.
Oh, my pleasure. But thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, people's lives are going to be changed by receiving their cards. They have a new way to access their inner wisdom because of you.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that because, like I said, I've used the I Ching for all these years, and it's been so helpful. And um, now for everyone to be able to have that opportunity to make it that much easier, I think it'll be really a game changer. Is actually what the publisher said. She said this was a game changer for the I Ching. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, totally. Definitely. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Please, where can people find you? Find the cards, like anywhere on the internet that we can access you. Please let us know.
Yeah, so they're available on Shambhala.com to purchase. That's SHAMBHALA.com. My website is moderniching.com, And then I'm on social media as Modern I Ching Oracle. Yeah, so Facebook, Instagram, and I'm slowly starting YouTube and TikTok. Yeah. Yep.
Got it. I'll just flash the sites at the bottom. moderniching.com. We've got shambhala.com. And then we can find you at Modern I Ching Oracle on the major places, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. May your community continue to grow. And I'm especially excited to see how you continue to steward us. And this ancient wisdom is literally in your hands.
Yeah.
In the modern
Thanks. So
world.
yeah. I'm excited for when they come out, and then we can really start sort of sharing the whole process and the wisdom together.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Catherine, for your time,
Great.
your wisdom, your expertise. Appreciate you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. This was really an honor to be a part of your community.
Likewise, it's an honor having you. And thank you to everyone who's watching, who's a part of the community. You are a part of this movement. We are inspiring each other. Even per Catherine's story, like this is how it gets done. We get to be a part of each other's lives and a part of each other's journeys, thus a part of each other's decks. All right, wishing everyone a magical day and see you in the group.